Hello, how are we doing? I'm Sam or Hoff, and I'm a Singed one trick with 2.5 million mastery points on Singed, who's currently at around 500 LP in Masters. Here is my quick guide on Singed to cover all the basics and help you climb the solo queue ladder with the gas daddy himself. Let's get started. So, let's start right at the beginning and look at Singed as a champion. Singed is an AP juggernaut who particularly excels in teamfighting due to his AoE poison and his game-changing fling. Singed's strength in particular, however, exists in getting in the enemies' heads and making their mental boom. Making enemies chase you to their own death, proxying waves, and being super difficult to kill makes your opponents question their own existence. Once you're able to do this, you too will be a Singed expert. In the current meta, Singed is a pretty weak laner. This is primarily due to his short range and lack of sustain. However, it is easy to get ahead in Singed, particularly in lower elos, as he is great at capitalising on enemy mistakes and flinging them into positions in the wave they don't want to be in. Also, if you're able to get in long extended trades using your Qs, flings and autos properly, you'll win most duels. Now, a word I mentioned previously was proxying. Proxying on Singed essentially means farming the wave before it meets your own. This is usually done between tier 1 and 2 towers, but it can also be done between tier 2 and 3, or even in the base. Proxying is great for getting an early push for a fast back or roam, and to avoid laning against more difficult matchups. It is crucial you're able to proxy and properly understand the correct movement if you want to master Singed. Now, let's take a look at runes and masteries on Singed. In the current meta and for my playstyle, I focus on 3 rune pages primarily. These are Conqueror, Predator and Phase Rush. Let's take a look at Conqueror first. Conqueror is a much more aggressive rune when playing Singed. The Conqueror playstyle is often much more AP heavy and does more damage, but it means you're more of a glass cannon. It's a much more snowbally rune page and is great for solo carrying from top lane. Running through the rune page itself, I always run Conqueror, which is great for the flat AP, Triumph, which often allows you to escape on low HP and sustain in fights, Legend Tenacity to stop you getting locked down, and Last Stand to help you pump out more damage when being chased. Then, in the Domination tree, Taste of Blood and Ultimate Hunter. Taste of Blood is great for lane sustain, and Ultimate Hunter is great for making sure you always have your ult in team fights. For all rune pages, we take one Adaptive Force rune with armour and MR for the final 2. If you're against double AD topside, I would recommend going 2 Adaptive Force runes, as this allows you to push the waves faster. When playing Conqueror, I will always play Ghost Ignite, or Flash Ignite if they have loads of ranged champions. The reason Ignite is so crucial is that it gives a Conqueror stack. Singed Q only gives you 1 stack, so in order to reach max stacks, using item actives such as Protobelt, alongside Ignite, and lots of autos, are crucial to get max stacks as soon as possible. The other rune page which I often run is Predator. The Predator playstyle focuses a lot more on roaming and playing for your team. This rune page is best for more difficult ranged matchups, where getting Conqueror stacks is more difficult and roaming mid or helping your jungler would be the best option. For this rune page I run Predator for the roaming power, Cheap Shot for extra damage, Eyeball Collection also for extra damage, and Ultimate Hunter to make sure your ultimate is always up for team fights. For secondary I run Resolve, as it allows you to scale better into late game. For this reason I run Conditioning and Overgrowth, which lets you become a stronger tank as the game goes on. For Predator I recommend running Flash and Ghost, and these summoner spells will help you to roam and get picks. Because you're not playing for your top lane, you don't need to run Ignite. The final rune page which I play on is Phase Rush. Phase Rush is my last resort rune for very difficult melee matchups which have a lot of slows. For example, champions such as Darius, Olaf or Nasus are all tanks which rely on slows and staying on top of you, so Phase Rush is crucial in kiting away these champions. For this rune page the setup is Phase Rush to escape the slows, Nimbus Cloak and Celerity for extra movement speed, and Scorch for extra damage you might be lacking from this rune page. Secondary I run Resolve with Second Wind for extra survivability in the difficult matchups to help you escape laning phase, and Unflinching to further help the kiting. For Phase Rush I always take Flash plus Ghost as you're looking to make plays for your team wherever possible. Now let's take a look at item builds and paths. Singed has a few options when building and it depends entirely on the rune page you're running and the enemy team. For every game I recommend starting Dark Seal plus Refillable because this means you can tank your waves and use your refillable potion before resetting, and you're not losing 50 or 100 gold every time. The flat AP is also really nice and allows you to snowball if you get ahead. Before I get into the mythics, I want to highlight it's almost always best if you rush boots first, and then demonic or rylai's before your mythic. Singed needs this damage from these items. I would rush demonic against tankier laners or teams, and rush rylai's against laners which are harder to stick on. Now, the main mythics which I personally build on Singed and I recommend are Protobelt, Radiant Virtue and Riftmaker. Protobelt is the glass cannon Singed mythic, and I would only ever use this item when running Conqueror. It gives great AP, magic pen, and it's a good gap closer for ranged champions. It also gives you a Conqueror stack, which is great. The only downside here is you will be a significantly squishier target than building other mythics. A typical full build with Protobelt would be Swifty Boots, Demonic Embrace, Protobelt, rylai's, Zhonya's, Randuin's. Radiant Virtue is the tanky mythic which I take on Singed. This is my primary mythic for the Predator and Face Rush setups. Radiant Virtue provides loads of resistances on HP, which is great for Singed and also heals your team, so makes him even stronger in teamfights. A typical full build with Radiant Virtue would be Swifty Boots, Demonic Embrace, Radiant Virtue, rylai's, Randuin's, and Force of Nature. And the final mythic which I occasionally buy is Riftmaker. This mythic is very conditional as it's the best option in only one scenario, when the enemy team has a bunch of low range tanks. For example, if I'm against a Sion top, a Maokai jungle and a Galio mid, Riftmaker would be a great choice. It allows me to burn through these tanks faster in extended fights, and sustain while doing so. The effectiveness of the gap closer of Protobelt, or the additional HP of Radiant Virtue in this scenario, would be much less useful when fighting these tanks. A typical full build with Riftmaker would mimic the Radiant Virtue build, so Swifty Boots, Demonic Embrace, Riftmaker, rylai's, Randuin's, Force of Nature. Now let's take a look at matchups. Singed top lane has many counters, but there's also some lanes which are highly favourable. There are hundreds of champions to go through, but we can take a high level approach here with a few examples. In general, Singed does well into weak early melee top laners. Examples of this might be Cho'Gath, Yasuo or Sett. This is because he is able to easily flip these champions into positions in the wave they do not want to be in. In addition, playing around Q and proper flips, he will win extended trades. Singed does however really struggle against certain melee top laners such as Darius or Olaf. These are champions which have strong early and are able to really stick on you if you're slowed. Against matchups like this you'll need to run the phase rush Runepage. Another weakness for Singed is ranged matchups top lane. Examples here would be Vayne, Akshan or Kayle. Early level Singed doesn't have enough gap close to get on top of these champions, and he gets significantly poked down when trying to farm waves. For these matchups, you need to survive lane and sacrifice CS, proxying wherever possible. Or just spam ping your jungler and try and get some ganks. Now let's talk about some extra tips here. Sky Auto. A Sky Auto on Singed is where you auto attack the champion before they've landed from your fling. This allows you to get an extra auto attack worth of damage off before they can react. It's also very useful for getting that extra Conqueror stack. To do this, attack move the ground below yourself as you flip the enemy champion. This next one is not really a tip, but something worth considering. Hex Flash. It wasn't mentioned in any of the recommended rune setups, but don't rule out Hex Flash as a rune in the secondary tree. The rune can be super useful for proxying waves in harder matchups by skipping large detours around the jungle. Give it a go, it's also pretty fun. That was a super quick guide of Singed, but hopefully I've covered all the important topics. Please come say hi to me on stream at twitch.tv/hoflol, where I stream high elo gameplay and can answer any questions you have. See ya!